Hi, welcome to Cryptid Wilderness Research. My name is Daniel Becker, coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska. Joining me, as always, from Quincy, Washington, is my co-host, Matt Slater.
Hello.
And today, our guest, researcher William Lunsford. Really a man who needs no introduction in the Bigfoot community world of research. He's the author of the book, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. William, let's start out by going into your first ever encounter. Can you describe to us that day and how this all happened and what you experienced?
Man, I sure can. First, let me thank everybody for being here listening to us. Again, thank you for our service people, our first responders who've done what they've done, sacrificed so that we can do this. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm glad to share what I have experienced with everybody. And please know that everything I'm telling you is the truth. Yeah, my first encounter was actually was by a young man who was 17 years old, myself, who did not believe in Bigfoot. And it was a place that I had been hunting and fishing with my dad since I was a young man. It was down in the bottoms of Sulphur River. Sulphur River is famous throughout Texas there, all along its waterway there for having Bigfoot sightings in several of the towns. But back then, it was more something that was just really the farmers more had whispered about in the evening, everything where they came home with their families that they had seen something. But then that was basically it. But I was actually 17 years old, fixing to graduate high school, and I was down fishing these gravel pits. That was my favorite place to be. And so got through there with, I had a coach there. I was his teacher's aide. And so I had a chance to leave that afternoon after we got through grading papers. He and I graded papers and pumped iron. Well, that day he wasn't there. He said, go ahead and go. So, man, I head down to the gravel pits, man. The highway curls up behind my truck, kind of like the Roadrunner cartoon there, man. So within just a little bit, I'm down there and I'm fishing. I had probably walked 3/4 mile before I first got to my very first gravel pit. And, man, I mean, it's a beautiful day. I'm enjoying what I do. That's my element. And so I'm down there fishing. I crossed a little creek called 4 Mile Creek. Walked down there. I had been at this place, man, so many years there. I said, my dad. And so as I get down to 4 Mile, I get to this gas line. And on both sides of this gas line, there are gravel pits there. And it's nothing uncommon there that you have a lot of dead fish. You'll have some dead animals, things like that. And so I began to smell the smell as I walked through there. And the further I got down there, the worse the smell got.
We often hear about people who've had these encounters. We often hear about the smell. Can you describe that smell?
Well, I'll tell you what, that smell is unlike anything. You can imagine Florida has an animal called the skunk ape because it tends to resemble the smell of a skunk. This here is very strong, just like that right there. It appears to be something that they can control, something they use to intimidate people, but it's a lot like, I tell people it's like a skunk that's been wading in the sewer and been rolling raw eggs with just a little bit of chicken fertilizer tint on the end right there. So it's really gets your attention. It's something that you never forget. I've told my wife and everybody else, well, you can fake everything about Bigfoot, but you can't fake that smell because it's something that never leaves you. So it's one of those things, again, that smell right there. Whenever I smelled it again after my first encounter. Long story short, about probably a year after that, it scared me to death, and I took off and running back to my vehicle, jumping over snakes, everything else too, to get there because I knew what it was. But this smell is something, like I said, it's really different. Although it's bad, I said it makes a skunk smell like he's going to Sunday school, man, because it's really that strong. And so I smelled the smell. And again, about a week and a half before that, I had been down there before. I'd smelled the smell. I was trying to retrieve a bait I had lost that weekend there fishing. As I'm walking down this gas line, something began to pace me on the side. Again, I stopped, I hollered, nothing going on. I started walking a little faster. It caught up to me, started walking a little faster. Pretty soon I start jogging. It's jogging. I realized whatever it is paying me a whole lot of attention. And that really made me uneasy. So I continued to run, got to the place where I had to cross a place called Days Creek. When I went into the woods and whenever I did, this thing screamed. And man, it was the most awful scream I'd ever heard. Like I said, it would, if you didn't have any hair, it would grow your hair and then it would curl it, but it really curled my hair. And I mean, I was scared to death for what it was because I'd never heard that before. I'm used to hearing panthers. I'm used to hearing bobcats, hearing foxes, hearing coyotes. And I've actually heard bears in there. We've got bears in our Sulphur River bottoms, and this was so much different. And I realized whatever it was, it had an air of viciousness to it that I can end this situation anytime I want to. So I ran across the creek, a little forward right there, got back to my vehicle. There was nothing there. Man, I was like, boy, thank goodness you just dodged a bullet. So again, I went that night and bought me a bowie knife, came back, continued to fish there time after that. Well, anyway, this next time I'm there after the day at school there, I get off there, I've crossed the creek, I'm heading down this gas line. And as I got to the smell, I got to one place down there that we call the crossroads. And so I began to, as it was twilight in the spring, probably about the last week of March, first week of April. And so whenever I'm down there at the crossroads, I have one or two more gravel pits I want to fish before I have to start heading back. Well, as I got about, probably 3/4 of the way across the gas line there, I began to see that I got the uneasy feeling for one thing, that there was actually something watching me, that something was wrong. And I stopped. I'm like, oh man, it's your imagination. You're thinking about that scream that you got the week before there. So it's just, again, it's kind of got me on edge. But then, on something like that, you can get in the woods, your imagination can run with you, So I'm sitting here, I'm like, you're just thinking it. So I start heading across the gas line again, and I stop again, and I look. I see something up there that I'm not familiar with. It's just a shape or a shadow, but I'm like, your imagination again. So I start walking. Well, this time this shadow begins to stand up. And whenever it does, like I said, it stands up and it gets to a certain point. It's got a limb in front of its face. It gets the limb to where it's supposed to be, and it continues to stand up. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? Well, first thing you think naturally is bear. And then you're thinking, oh gosh, can that be a sloth? Well, we don't have sloths in Arkansas, even though there was bears down there. But we don't have, bears standing up at 7.5 feet tall there and walking on 2 feet to the middle of the road. So anyway, he walks to the middle of the road, again, begins to teeter like this, looking at me, and man, my eyes filled with tears. I'm hyperventilating. I'm scared to death. I begin to pray, Lord, whatever this thing is, just please don't let it get me. And again, I thought about my mom. My dad had passed when I was 12, so she would be. I thought, Lord, just take care of my mom if something happens, But if you don't help me, just don't help him. Well, he begins to walk back to where he stopped, where he was. He sits there. He grabs the same limb, skims the cat with the leaves, chews on that for a little bit, and walks out in the middle of the road. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I'm in a mess. So he sits there and he teeters for a little bit, and when he does, all of a sudden looks like he's going to step forward, and he pivots. He whips around on that one left leg. And so whenever he did that right there, he took 2 steps. Then he was into the woods on third. Guys, I don't know what this stupid thing is right here that keeps going off. I apologize for whatever that is. But anyway, so whenever I get through right there, he gets into the woods. I'm still scared to death. I'm scared to death. I can't move. I want to run. I was a good track runner. I was a good swimmer. There were daggum gravel pits down there, but I couldn't move. Finally, I got my wits about me there where, boy, you better do something to this. So I took off running. I was going to try to run to the gravel pits, figured he's going to come chase me. I was going to dive into the water and swim to the end of one of them underwater, which I could have done, and then try to get away that way. Well, as I began to run again, I was there, and I had run the mile in school. And man, whenever I saw that, I looked back and there was nothing there. The coast was clear. I continued to run. Got down there to where I turned, and then got across the date to the 4 Mile Creek. And instead of having to wade through it, I actually jumped across it, scrambled up the side of the bank right there across what used to be a landfill, and then down a wooded lane there, covered lane. Then back to my vehicle. I throw my fishing tackle over the gate. I dive through the gate. I've got my key ready. I open it up right quick. I'm sitting there, get it started, taking inventory of what's going on. He's not coming around. I look and I see my fishing tackle. Well, I go get my fishing, just drive up there, get my fishing tackle, and I head back to Texarkana. I sit down and tell my mom what's going on, and man, she kind of giggles at first, and she goes, son, are you sure you saw the fat monster? I said, Mama, I saw the fat monster. And she goes, I just don't believe I tell a whole lot of people. I said, and that was good advice, because when you in this business right here, or this hobby, or this genre, you get a whole lot more grief from people when you tell them what you've seen than when that you're not getting anything. Most of it's not positive. But I've been doing it now for 47 years. That was 47 years ago. And then by then, these people, if they don't want to believe me, that's fine. I would love for them to believe it, because I'm telling you right now, as you know, I'm not one of the kind of people that say, well, that Bigfoot exists, this and this and this. No, folks, I'm here to tell you as honest as I can be. Bigfoot does exist. And I'm fortunate enough, the areas that I live around Sulphur River, around what's called the Legend of Boggy Creek, if y'all remember that movie from years ago, and also not too far from the Ouachita Mountains. And I've actually been fortunate enough to carry Daniel here down there with me. And the first time we went, we were both COVID, but after that, when we got to come back and actually make an actual trip, Daniel got some great pictures there. Again, we had one scream at us. Then the next time that we went down through there, we heard the babies over there doing the chatter. And so, but folks, other than that right there, for 47 years, I managed to see probably on a good year, I consider a good year is probably 7 Bigfoot a year. Other than that, if I see 3, still, man, if I see 3, that's a good year too. Because when you're having a Bigfoot encounter, you're experiencing something that a lot of people never get the opportunity to do. And it's one of the things that actually shakes you up. I can take and drive a nail from the day that I had my first Bigfoot encounter, and there's everything those 17 years of my life before then, and then after that, then there's the rest of my life right there. So you can turn that off. I'm sorry. And so then there's the rest of my life. So it's definitely a landmark event that happens in your life, and after that you become aware. Because man, I'm a woods guy. I grew up. They used to call me River Rat because I used to grow up on Silver River. I used to spend a lot of time in the woods, a lot of time in the river, and whenever you're there, it's something that's always in the back of your mind. And again, what it did to me. Now, anytime I go to the woods, I've got either a sidearm or I've got a rifle, and not to kill Bigfoot. And I have all kinds of people here that are crazy. For one thing, you know, we get a lot of druggies and everything else too. And then two, we've got bears. Again, like I said, the other animals that I mentioned before that can be very hazardous to your health. And I actually sent Daniel a picture of one of the bears I've got there. It's got a gray face and black ears. I've seen some of her cubbies, and that changes things. Whenever you have, it changes the whole dynamic. When you've got food and you've got family, that's 2 of the things right there that can change a Bigfoot encounter to when some that may even be used to use, as some of mine, and this man named Stephen Hill, who is my research partner down here, has been for about at least 6 or 7 years. It changes that from where it was, and it can escalate that a whole lot. So again, but folks, I tell you honestly, Bigfoot is real. Don't let anybody tell you different. I'm so glad where Daniel lives up there in Alaska. Washington has always had, you know, the encounters there. It's been documented. People have kind of, oh yeah, man, that Pacific Northwest. Well, Alaska's starting to get a lot more Bigfoot reports too. And so I've been seeing some on the TV, and I'm glad of that because they've always been there. I talked to a lady up there at Denali National Forest in Alaska, and she was a tour guide. And I asked her, I said, well, you ever had anybody report any, you know, Bigfoot sightings up here, man? She just stopped what she's doing. She was a native, I guess a Tlingit or whatever those Indians or Eskimos is. And she stops, man. She bows her head and she goes, my people say I'm not supposed to talk about the hairy man. She said that in a very reverent attitude, lowered her voice. Again, kept her hands clasped together. And I said, ma'am, I'm not going to make fun of you. I said, I live 4,000 miles away, and I've got them down there where I live. So she shared a little bit with me, and you know, about the people when they would hear them either whistling or screaming coming down from the mountains, that the people feared that they were going to steal their children or steal the women. And the men would get the ladies and the children together and put them in their huts and in their domiciles, and then they would get ready till they felt like the threat was over with. So anyway, knowing that she was telling me the truth because of the way she acted, I said, so I'm just going to ask you the $1,000,000 question. I said, is Bigfoot real here in Alaska? Again, she does the same thing. She folds her hands, she looks down, she goes, I don't just believe because of what my mother and my grandmother told me. Man, that was enough for me because Alaska, I live right here on the 3 miles from Texas. Texas is huge. It takes you a long time to drive across Texas. It's going to take you a whole lot longer to drive across Alaska. But that vast wilderness that they have right there. Again, Washington State has all the area, and then it's got the mountains and the things, and then the forestry and everything. Most of it is forested, so you've got a whole lot of area here for these animals or these creatures to live, and they do. People think there's not enough food. No, if there's enough food for a bear, there's enough food for Bigfoot, and they tend to live. They tend to live in family units, or else they tend to live in some that they've adopted, what we call a troop. I've been fortunate enough to see as many as 5 at one time and 7 at another time right there. So I know that's true. And here lately, the things I've done recently, starting to get here in Arkansas at least, I'm totally persuaded that they start having their babies in December and maybe even late November, but December and January, because we're already getting, I took a friend of mine named Jim Owenby, and we found baby tracks coming across this big field. Here's the baby tracks stepping off into the roadway. Got some pictures just last week of 2. There's actually 2 white Bigfoot. And they're sitting there and they're looking up at my camera. We took my camera. Jim was good enough to take a log, hollow out this log for me. And so we put my camera inside there, got it blocked out. Sure enough, here's these 2 white baby Bigfoot looking up at the camera just like that. And one of them has got his 3 fingers right there reaching towards the camera. And this is kind of how you see the picture right there. He's got it just like this. So the Bigfoot, again, like it's not just a population of what we have. There's actually a breeding population here in Arkansas. I go to Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, I actually tracked one down the Mississippi River there at Memphis one time, and then I went to Montana and got to, I think, see one right there. Like I said, I've got the picture, and I'll just have to let you to be the judge of that yourself. But I'm 100% persuaded. I went with one of the guys who's a great Bigfoot expert, Duke Sullivan. If there is one, he is one. And went with him, and he got some pictures as well. So, but that's the thing right there. The encounters that I've had, the more time that you spend in the woods, the more encounters you're going to have, and you're going to. I try to have some on purpose, but then you're going to have some by accident too. And when you do, that's pretty cool right there. Me and my wife and son actually did a show with the Travel Channel called These Woods Are Haunted, and based on what it was an encounter well, actually the first encounter I just told y'all about, and then the second one was when me and my wife and my son were down there one night. My son was in dental school. It was his last night at home, so he begged his mom to go with us. Sure enough, she does. So again, if you don't believe this, Bigfoot have a special affinity for children and women. So your chances, I feel like, are a whole lot better if you have a woman, if you have a child with you. And I don't take my dogs anymore. They generally doesn't work out good for the dogs. But I have my wife and my son. Takes about 45 minutes, and I start calling. And Bigfoot do answer calls. That's no doubt about it. People can laugh. It's maybe not like what you see on some of these people on TV, but they do answer calls. But I'd tried my whole gamut of calls that I had done. Finally, I thought, well, heck, everybody's talking about hearing clacking rocks. So I got a couple rocks, and man, I went to banging on these rocks together. And sure enough, I get woo over. I told my wife, I said, there he is right there. She said, how do you know? She said, it might have been an owl. So if that's an owl, I said, it weighs 500 pounds, And so, and truly, and you've been to those woods, Dan, you know how dark it is down there. And I've got my son with me, and I'm armed, and we're sitting on the back of my truck. Got my vehicle parked in the right way. Tip number one, always, if you're down there, get your vehicle ready where in case you have to jump in it and leave in a hurry, you can without having to back up, because too many things can happen. So we're down there, and I hear this Bigfoot sneaking up on us. And like I said, my son is over there. He's hanging beef jerky, and he's over there with his own pistols and his own guns over there. And he's hanging beef jerky, putting out a few of the other things that we used to bait them in. And I'm sitting there with my wife, and so I hear this one sneaking up. I said, he's trying to sneak up on us. My wife goes, where? I said, be quiet. I said, he's right over there. He stops for a little bit. He starts coming in again. Starts stepping a little bit more lively, with a little bit more purpose to it. Like, well, there's a male over there, so I'm fixing to kind of stomp him out of the way. So he stomps a little bit harder as he's coming in. I told Cindy, I said, he's on his way. She's like, I don't hear anything. What? And I said, Cindy, I said, you got to be quiet. So anyway, it takes a minute or two. Finally, he starts trying to sneak in again, and I can hear him. I said, he's standing right over there. So as he does right there, he starts coming in. For whatever reason I thought it was a good idea. I thought I would do a whoop, which Bigfoot actually whoop, whoop, like that right there. Well, I did a couple of whoops. And whatever I whooped at him was not the right thing to say, because he was mad, and he was on his way in on a dead run. And I tell people the only way that you could describe that, like I said, is an elephant trying to drive a bulldozer to come through them woods, because he was tearing through those vines. I see the shadow coming right to me. And I have, thank goodness, the presence of mind to realize that if I lose my cool, that could not only mean my life, but my family's life. So I pull my spotlight out in my left hand. I got a very bright spotlight. That's your best friend at night if you're going to go on a Bigfoot encounter, is a spotlight. And I've got my pistol in my right hand. And so I'm waiting for him to come in. Sure enough, he gets close enough to where I feel like that's enough. And so I light up the spotlight. Man, he just throws the arm around. Down he goes, just in one big whirl. He hits the ground, runs back on all fours, probably another 10 feet, stands up, then goes back to running again on all fours back towards Sulphur River. Whenever he does that right there, then he goes down to where one of the roads cross, and he jumps up in a tree. And so Reese goes, oh, man, he's over in that tree. He's in that tree. So I kind of get in front of Reese so that he won't think that he's the weak link. And so we're sitting there, and pretty soon then we hear him jump out. When he jumps out of the tree, then there's another that was with him that we didn't hear. That was a scary part. We didn't know this other one was over there. I sure didn't even think about it. And all of a sudden you hear him as he's going. So they're heading down towards Sulphur River. And all of a sudden everything just gets deathly quiet. And my wife goes, "Did you hear that?" I said, "No, what?" She goes, "Nothing." She goes, "It's just deathly quiet." And I said, "Yeah." So anyway, she's in the truck. She makes my son hand her a gun, and she says, "If you guys hear this truck start, you better dive into the back because I'm gone." Now, I understand this. Now, my son's in dental school. There will never be another doctor come from my loins if you try it with a test tube. But you've got Reese right there. And like a very, very smart, good student. We got me sitting there, and she said, "I mean it." She said, "If you hear this truck start, you better dive into the back. I'm gone." I said, "Cindy," I said, you mean you're going to leave your only son down here and your husband with a rogue Bigfoot? And she goes, I'll have more kids. You better listen to me. If it starts, you better get going. So anyway, we're kind of laughing, but we do get in the vehicle because it's kind of eerie, man. It's still awful quiet. So as we're driving out, then her sister-in-law calls and says, hey, what are y'all doing? And Cindy goes, well, we're down here at the Bigfoot woods. And she's not a believer, but let's put it this way. She didn't want to be a believer. I can't get her to go with me. I asked her several times. So has Cindy. And Cindy tells her, well, we're down here in the Bigfoot woods. Well, y'all having anything happen? Cindy goes, oh, yeah. And then thank goodness for sister-in-laws being what they are. She goes, you know you're going to die. So, man, that just, that just kind of stopped it. But that's exactly what was said. And so, I mean, the men racer are used to it, but you're never really used to it because you don't know how a Bigfoot encounter is going to go. I've had some, man. I've got one up there in the Ouachita Mountains. I truly think she recognizes me. I think she has a crush on me. My research partner, Stephen Hill, will tell you that she'll tend to follow me through the woods there. She'll come up and she'll leave her footprints where I've parked before up there. But you don't ever know how a Bigfoot encounter is going to go. You don't know how it's going to end. Again, you don't know what those intangibles are. Have they had kids? Is there food up there? Is there a rogue Bigfoot that's been, trying to break into their area? And so, again, that's one of those things. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I enjoy this for what I do. I do it really for myself. Because I would, even if I knew I wasn't going to be on anybody's podcast, if I wasn't going to write a book, if I wasn't going to be on a TV show, I still enjoy this because, man, I'm looking at something that's not supposed to exist. I believe the Earth is about 7,500 years old. I don't believe all that other bull about the millions and millions of years. But if it is, it's even more impressive because this thing has managed to stay unclassified for this whole time. But I've been fortunate enough to have the sightings that I've had and to know that he's there. And so that really makes it impressive to realize that the cunning, the intelligence, the design, the intent that these animals have there, and even when you're standing out there in the woods. And again, like I said, I've seen 7 at one time and saw 5 at another time, and several times, when you got 2 or 3. I've seen mama twins about 4 times now, and took my wife down there one day, and she got a picture of a mama and 2 baby twins right there. And she goes, oh, well, I've only been Bigfoot hunting for like 10 minutes, and I've got my first picture. What, 40-something years for you now? We don't even know who the Bigfoot hunter needs to be, So we had a good little joke out of that. But her picture is very good. You can see a little 3-fingered hand. And it's hard for her to admit. Now, she'll take it from me, boy. She'll scratch your eyes out, for jumping on me and calling me a liar or something else like that, because she's lived with it now for 42 years. She's lived 42 years, and she knows how it affects me, man. I mean, it really affects me. And she knows my son's not a liar, to see that right there. She knows what she got. She knows Stephen's not a liar. She knows Daniel's not a liar. And so, but she'll, like I said, to admit it, she's still not ready for that kind of negative publicity. But if you say something bad about me, and I'm sure there's a lot of bad things to be said about me, but she's going to let you have it. And so I appreciate her for that. And, but it's really something here it's an amazing field that you get in. I have, had days where we found when I looked like the troop had come in, they do travel. And this troop was going down this one road there that all it was kind of sandy, but it was soft. And we probably saw, no joke, in 2 days, and with the first day it was about 30. And by the time we got through the second day up there was probably 70 tracks out there where the whole troop had come through there. And I'm not pulling your leg. Like I said, I don't cast in many because it's not, like I said, I do it for myself. If you make a cast of a Bigfoot track, it's going to cost you about $8, something like that, at least in plaster of Paris. And then you got to sit there and wait. I waited one day down there when I had seen a mama and a baby down there. And I went down there to cast this track, had a cast of both of them. I had it sitting there, and they were walking around me whenever I was down there waiting on this track to harden. Well, there was some extra softness and moisture. Daniel and I got some tracks down there last year that hopefully we could show y'all in another show here. But we got the extra tracks from that moisture, so it took longer to dry out. So they're walking around me, man. I'm really nervous about that. So I back up there with my tailgate down. I sit there on top of it. I've got my pistol sitting right there waiting. As soon as I get a chance, I take and dig up those tracks. I'm going back up the road, realize that I had forgotten. I'm so excited. I had forgotten to put my lid on my plaster Paris bucket. So when I go up there about 70 yards and then get out to put the lid on the plaster Paris bucket, these things are already down there in the bottom of this cul-de-sac down there. So really, really exciting because I'm looking at them. They're looking at me. I've got their tracks right there. And so again, that's one of those things that would have never happened had I not just been in the woods. It's not going to happen, sitting on your couch. Now, I say it can, depend on where you live in the woods. They'll actually come up and they'll actually peek in your windows. And I kind of When I first started doing this, people started telling me that. I thought, nah, I'd heard everybody talking about how evasive these things are, and they certainly are. They're stealthy, but they're also curious about us as people. We both have the same body shape. We both walk upright on two. We both tend to have a male and female of the species there, and have the little juvies right there. So they are interested in us, and I know probably 10 people now who've had the creatures that have walked up and stood right outside their window. And one of them looked like the man who actually does my lawn. And he said it looked like it was actually trying to clean a spot on the window so that it could see more clearly into the window. Another man named Bobby Hamilton. He's part of the Louisiana Bigfoot researchers there of the show of killing Bigfoot. Well, like I said, which is not something that they named themselves, but he's one of the cast members there. And his first one was Bigfoot coming to the window and waving for him to come to the window. So again, they do things like this right here. They do things regardless of these people say, oh, well, they're supposed to be secretive. How come they do that? They do what they do because they can do what they want to do, truly. But they're very interested in us. And that's the truth. Again, I told you about the one who follows me around. I've got a track of hers just as soon as I get out of my vehicle one day, and it's very muddy. And I go in there and I set some bait, and then I come back out. Well, about 20 minutes later, my research partner, Steven, calls me, and he says, have you been up here to what we call ground zero? It's where we have our most of our Bigfoot encounters. And I said, yeah, how'd you know? He sends me a picture, and then there's my feet, and I have two metal knees, so I have to step out kind of pigeon-toed like this right here and land at the same time. And Stephen takes a picture there, and there is about a 16.5-inch Bigfoot track right there between my two footprints where I stepped out of the truck, and it's about 2.5 inches deep. About at that time I think I was about 280 pounds, and I'm about a quarter inch deep at the most, and these things are about 2 inches deep, so you can see the difference, and it's enough to really get your attention. You think, oh my goodness, did I dodge a bullet again or not? But again, it's something that's very, very real, and I really enjoy doing this. And like I said, I've been very fortunate to make some friends in this genre, very, very honest men, very, very honest women. And I got a good friend of mine named Keith Crabtree. Keith played the monster in The Legend of Boggy Creek, and he can tell you everything about it. Again, Stephen, he and I have been friends. Didn't know that we each Bigfoot hunted for 30 years until he finally called me one day and the subject came up, and I had taken him one day when we were playing softball to a little low water bridge on the Costot River in Arkansas. And I'd heard about a Bigfoot sighting when I was up there actually, examining it, but I didn't tell him. So he calls me about 30 years later, and he'd seen that I was on a podcast. He goes, you the same one that used to play softball? And I said, yeah. And so he said, man, how come you never told me you was a Bigfoot hunter? And I said, well, it's just not something you want to tell. I don't want to lose friends. Can't afford to lose too many of them. I said, nearly lost a wife. I said, so I'm going to kind of keep all my friends. And he said, tell me something. That day up on that low water bridge where we Bigfoot hunting, we both had a big laugh. I said, yeah, we were. But that's how intuitive Stephen is. Real good guy, honest man, family man. He's about as big as a Sasquatch himself. But boy, he's a great researcher. Again, the other men that I have here and ladies researching with me, as is Daniel Becker right here. Daniel's a great researcher. Daniel's got probably the best picture of a Bigfoot I've ever seen. He got a picture we did what's called grid photos. Take a picture here, you move your camera here, you take a camera here, and when we do, and we're sitting there looking at it, and we could just hear noise. We couldn't see him at that time, but Daniel was casting to a place almost where my wife got her baby picture, and he's got a picture of one that's. I went back 3 days later down there, and we've got a picture of a 10.5 footer. And it's got looks like a baby's hand right here across the chest, and you can look at maybe see one that's back there on the back of his head. But the picture that's been showed with a couple of shows, the picture, oh man, that's the first time I've ever been able to see a face of a creature like that. So then they realize, hey, this is not just like blob squatch. This is not something you see drawn, in some of these comic books or something like this. Not everyone looks the same, and that's what people don't understand. They don't all have. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
So speaking of the looks, and all the encounters that you have had, what can you tell us about facial features? What were you able to notice?
My first one looked just like a big, tall gorilla. It was the legs. Gorillas got really small, short legs. It's time being over. This one was tall, very tall, about 7.5 foot. Very, very muscular, big, broad shoulders. Tapered waistline, big, thick butt muscles, and everything else like that. But then I've also now been able to see some, and this one had the cone head. He had the deep set eyes, had the kind of a brow ridge right there, about like I tell people like what Herman Munster had, if you remember what the Munsters are. Yep. They had that ridge set like that. Had the hair was mostly black. If there was any tint to it, it might have been coming from the light that was behind me, but if so, it was like a light brown or maybe some red that was coming through from the sun. But they don't. The hands, man, were like baskets. You know, he tended to carry his hands forward. When he put his hands on the limb, instead of grasping it like that,
Mhm.
he had it like this right here, so you could see the fingers. Fingers 7 inches long. I've got a cast of a 14-inch handprint, and buddy, that's pretty impressive. Me and Daniel got tracks 22 inches long up there. And man, that's
Right.
bigger. Yeah, I mean, that's, and I've got another one there from Smith, from not Smith Park, but from down here at Mercer Bio. And again, it's a 22-inch tracks. But then you've got some that have the round heads. Their eyes can tend to be more heavy, set back into their heads like that right there. Again, they got the jutting jaw. That's why you see one, if you look, remember the Patterson Gimlin film, when it turns its head, it has to turn its whole body because of the dropping jaw line. If it doesn't hit, just like it hits in my shoulder right here, but when it has to turn its whole body to look like that. So that explains why the Patterson film, one of the things, that would have been something that Roger Patterson would not have known whenever, or Bob Gimlin would not have known when he was filming that film with Roger Patterson right there. Again, like I said, they're all different colors. Like I said, these two guineas I got here this week on picture, they're white. We call them skeletors. Their heads are not like big like the other Bigfoots are. They're just kind of almost skull shaped, and it may just be because their bones haven't totally formed or anything else like that. And so again, they do. There's some that are the heads are broader, some that the heads tend to be more streamlined. And so they don't all look alike, and that's where a lot of people are saying, "Oh well, no, that can't be a Bigfoot. It's not this and this. No, that's not so." Because I've got the pictures on my phone. I've got 50 really good pictures, and then I've probably got another 50 besides that right there. That's just, you're just so impressed with what you're looking at. You realize, well, man, if these other 50 pictures are real, this was real, because he's not going to try to fake pass off something other like that. So they are all different, but they all have different personalities. The ones at Sulphur River down here, they tend to be more aggressive. The ones that I have up there in the Washita Mountains, me and Stephen up there with the Ground Zero, they tend to be more passive or more acceptance. But Sulphur River, everything down there is trying to kill them when they're trying to eat. So I think that's one reason that they tend to have that little bit of attitude there. But really, really, like I said, it's really, really interesting to see. I think most females, if they're healthy, they're like healthy deer. They have twins, and I've seen that. I know another man who said he's seen now 4 sets of twins there with the mama, and for that right there, and the ones that I've seen, that tends to make it what I would call classic Bigfoot behavior. Not every doe deer has twins, but one that's healthy, that'll be how it, and that's kind of what happens with Bigfoot as well. So that's kind of about an overview of what we've got here, and so I'm very pleased to be here with everybody, man. And like I said, and to share this with you. Again, know that I'm telling you the truth. Daniel paid me the ultimate compliment whenever he got in touch with me from Alaska, and here I am in Arkansas. He says, "Man, I know you're not lying." He said, "Because there's nobody can lie that fast, because I do talk fast. I was a UPS man for 35 years. If I had to get anything said, I was going to have to get it said during that time right there. So I do talk fast, as you can tell. But like Daniel said, there's not time to sit there and think these things up whenever you've had these encounters. And one tends to mirror the other one, like this right here. And whenever you do, you're like, oh my gosh, this happened just like it did in this encounter, and this happened like in this encounter." And then I talked to other people as a UPS man all around. Within, I had a 70-mile radius of where I was delivering to, all around in a circle. And when I was talking to those same people like that, and they were telling me the same kind of stories, again, man, it just blew my mind for what I was learning from them. Again, however things seemed to be parallel, and I realized it wasn't just Falk. I was having them going towards Mississippi. I was having them going up towards Oklahoma. I've seen one in Oklahoma one night there that actually had his hands on my truck, walking down there and looking at my food down in through there. I went with the men from Southern Bigfoot Alliance, really, really great researchers. And so that's kind of just an overview, but I'll let y'all ask me any questions if you have right quick, and then we can kind of wrap this up if y'all want to.
Matt, go ahead.
Well, my one question that I've had, pertaining to different research methods and research equipment, is a lot of people will try and use game cameras. It seems like it would be the ideal object to set up. You just put it up in a tree, looks like the tree, it snaps a photo. But I hear from a lot of the different stories and a lot of the different information that's out there that most of the game cameras wind up getting destroyed.
Yep.
And I've always kind of wondered, if people think that perhaps using the infrared light from the camera, perhaps Sasquatches or Bigfoot might be able to see that.
There's no doubt in my mind, because we have one. My son had bought me a FLIR for Christmas in 2016, and we went out on January the 13th, 2017, the first time. And so Bigfoot, they can actually manipulate your electrical devices. They had drained our batteries through use of this infrasound, but my son, we got one up there on the hill, and we could hear. And so he said, "Dad, get your FLIR." I put my FLIR up there, and as soon as the infrared from my FLIR camera recorder hit this thing, he came, I mean, instantly he just comes to the edge of the river and just kind of does that kind of posture. And I hollered, "Sasquatch, Sasquatch." So anyway, whenever I do, I've still got it on him. He turns around, runs about halfway up the hill, does the same thing again. Then he gets to the top, and then my research partner, Randy Crawford, goes, "Man, let me have it, let me have it." So I hand it to him. But I had gloves on and was not as familiar with it as what I would have liked to have been. But anyway, my thumb accidentally hit the off button. I handed him an off FLIR, and so, boy, he's mad. Hey, and I don't blame him. I would have been too. He missed an encounter, but my son missed it also. But they had also zapped out his batteries. So they can see infrared light. And the thing is, it's like if you go home and your wife has hung something there, in the hallway as you're going down to the bedroom, there's something there that's kind of sticking out that wasn't there before. Do you think you're going to recognize it? Yes, you will, or else you're going to bump your head on it. Well, that's how familiar they are in their area. I had one night there that was coming through there, and they had just bulldozed this high line where I had my first encounter. It was about 5-6 miles down the road there. And this thing kept coming through there, and me and my son and my nephew saw it, and it kept dodging like that, and didn't realize it was still being hit with the spotlight. It would walk on, then it would duck down again, kind of like a boxer, you know. I'm like, man, I wonder what's going on. So I go back down there the next day then, and we got a good look at him. He finally stepped underneath the bough of some trees. We got a good look at him. And I went back the next day with a tape measure, and this one was 9.5 foot tall. But the thing that was cool was the reason that he was ducking down was because they had just bush hogged. Where he ducked down was exactly where there used to be some trees until they cut this. So he was that familiar with this area, and that's just how good they are in their stuff. He was that familiar in this area right here to know what was supposed to be there, and so he was trying to avoid the avoidance by us. You know, us seeing him. I had him lit up, and so did my son. And then, that's not the first time we have, the last time that we have seen one. That was the first time, but not the last time we've seen one on this particular deal. So they do, but we hide our game cameras. I don't tie them to trees. If I do, it's a very rare occasion. I've got one right now that he tore down about a month and a half ago there. I had tied to a tree. And so it's right across from where we put bait on this other tree, and for some reason he had just snapped the cord just totally off. But normally we put them into the brush tops there. We find some of those V-shaped limbs and we wedge them in here just like this right here. And so whenever he walks by, he's going to get his picture to it, and he doesn't know it's there. He's not alerted to the fact that there's something sticking out like a wart, you know, on somebody's nose like that. It's nothing to alert him, and so he doesn't know what's there. He gets it, but the funny thing is the next picture that you get is generally wherever you got a face looking into the wood line there at your into the brush top. That's your Bigfoot, that's your camera, or else you've got a hand reaching in there to get it. And I've got 2 cameras up there right now that are on the ground. The good Lord himself is the only one that knows where they're at right now, but he took them and got his picture taken, and they're thrown out there, and I still hope to find them somewhere. But that is evidenced by the fact that these 2 little white babies I got last week, like I said, that one sitting there, and he's reaching up to get that camera. It looks to be maybe about 7:15 in the morning, still pretty early. The light is very low. But it's good enough that you can see them, and so, but they know where your cameras are, regardless. I mean, I've got some that are sitting there, boy, just staring. They're like, you know, what are you going to do now, you know? But the whole time the light is showing on that, and they're not very fond of light. But I've got, man, I mean, gosh, I've got 30 pictures of where you got either Bigfoot eyes just peeking in like that, or it's either the hand, you know, or sometimes it's the Bigfoot standing back. But the game cams are actually, like right now, they're actually hunting for me. They're doing my research for me right now where I'm talking to y'all. And so I will be going one day this week. Now that the spring is through here, and at least to check my cameras. This is the same time of year Daniel and I went last year, when Daniel got a picture of one that we're listening to those babies over there that are doing the little chirping or gibberish, whatever you want to talk it. And so Daniel's taking pictures. So then later on I said, did you get anything on them pictures, Daniel? And he looked through there and sent it. Sure enough, I'm standing there and I've got a 45-70 rifle in my hand beside me like this. I'm looking this way over there to see if we can see, because Daniel had been chased by some hogs that morning to a tree. So he was nervous. I was nervous because I don't particularly like trying to outrun hogs either. And then also we got bears, and I didn't know if it was a Bigfoot. So we're sitting there and Daniel sends the picture, and right in front of me is a Bigfoot hiding behind the tree, leaning out just like here. And Daniel got that picture right there. So again, he's 2 for 2, and then another, I think he got one on a FLIR also. So he's he's our good luck charm and doing stuff like that. And I don't say that just to butter his ego. Daniel's very, very good. When you find some good researchers, they realize how serious it is. I don't take a lot of people to the other area that we have, because if they go in there and they get encounters, they start shooting or something like that, it could be not a good scenario. So again, we go in there and very, you don't go in there just barging through the woods. You try to be very, very respectful of what's going on. Try to be quiet. Again, it pays to know the other animals that are in your area right there, know the background noises that you're getting. And so that's another thing. Again, we do use bait. We tend to bait them up with candy bars. They've got a sweet tooth, just like the fat boy here has got. And but they tend to eat those candy bars. I've got some apples out right now. They finally started eating some apples last year. Hadn't had much success with that. I have had success with sardines, but again, starting to get more success with those apples. So I've got some of them out right now. So we're just going to kind of see how that works out. And again, having these babies that are just young, maybe I can monitor, kind of how their growth rate is and stuff like that. I've had one on the camera now for about 4 years, and this baby that she just had this one baby she had on her shoulder when she walked by our camera the first time. Well, now his footprints are about 13 inches long, so he's really, doing quite a job. It's actually a 3-toe track, and but so it's something we can look at and maybe see, try to check their growth rates and everything else like that. So there's all kinds of reasons for doing research. It's not just you're up there, like I said, just trying to be, just an adrenaline junkie or anything else like that. We do try to put some method behind our madness and stuff. I said, very, very fortunate to have the intelligent people that I have with me, because they make up for some of the. When you get excited, you're going to do some stupid stuff when you're looking at a Bigfoot. You're just going to forget to do something other. There was one man there, I think he was a Native American. I saw us on one of the shows, but I heard his story before, where he's got a Bigfoot looking at him. He puts his rifle up there and click, 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 click. Bigfoot still standing there. He takes off, comes back, realizes he forgot to pull the trigger. He just totally just ejected all his shells whenever he was sitting there looking at this thing. So you're gonna make some mistakes. And that's the funny part about it. You can only, if you're truly honest, you can only just laugh at yourself and go, "Oh, stupid." My wife thinks I'm the worst Bigfoot researcher there is, and which is great, because at least she realizes that because I had to tell her this before we got married, that I'd actually seen, quote, the fountain monster. I expected them to toss me out of the house and maybe run over me a few times with their car and then dump me down there on the highway, hope I could hitchhike back. But her folks actually told me that they had had one on their land. Very, very strange encounter that was walking down in front of a lady's garden party, walking down the fence line. So she's freaking out, hoping that the ladies don't turn around and see it. So she's trying to keep their attention when she does. And so then they tell her the story. And my wife's mother told me that story at the same time I told them that, hey, I've seen the fountain monster. And so that really made it a whole lot easier. But I thought, man, if this girl's folks have got Bigfoot on their land, I'm fixing to marry this girl now, because it was just that serious. It's like bass fishing. It's not just life and death. It's much more important than that. But anyway, that's kind of how that started out. But really it is to hear her encounter. Never even thought anything like that. This lady, according to my mother-in-law, was as honest as the day is long. So again, a really great encounter that I heard about, that I accidentally, came upon. And I'm like, oh my gosh, to further solidify, not that I needed it. When you've looked at one, you don't need anything else to solidify your account that, yeah, for what I saw was real. But that other people are still having these encounters, and there's more and more encounters out there now. That's one thing that some of the TV shows, although I believe a lot of them hoaxes, you may as well just say, as far as it goes. These people, it's not happening. What they're saying is happening, but it's making it to where it's more fashionable that you can talk about Bigfoot without being ridiculed.
Right.
Because it's a strange thing, but when people they start seeing them things, there's what the policemen call the urge to confess. People have got to get it off their shoulders.
Yeah.
And by having these groups like what y'all have, it's like a support group, man. First time I told somebody about mine, weight lifted off my shoulders right there. It's something I carried all that time. And man, I cry. I still cry whenever I tell people my story. When I really if I get into the depth of it, man, you'll see tears coming into my eyes. You'll see them rolling down my cheeks. You'll look at my arm, and man, it looks like I've been in a daggum swarm of mosquitoes with all the goosebumps that have been through there. So again, it really, really affects you, but it's a great, great thing.
So William, it's been a fantastic time talking to you in our first interview of a series that we're going to do together.
Man, I'm
great part one, great introduction. We're almost at time here, so tell us, what do you got coming up?
Oh, great, man. I appreciate that. First thing we got up here, we got something that's coming up here. Actually, you're coming down here to do, we have the solar eclipse. And so we're actually going to be in the woods out there where we research Bigfoot during the solar eclipse, hopefully to see if this eclipse, this event by nature, actually affects these Bigfoot and makes them become more aggressive or more active or anything else like that. Nothing else, it's still going to be fun with the group of people that we have there. It's going to be really, really good. And then the 3 days before that, on April the 5th, I have a speaking engagement in a little town called Locksburg, Arkansas there. There'll be a lot of people coming in here. Arkansas is going to be one of the matter of fact, the one place that's going to have the best viewing in all of America is Russellville, Arkansas. But it's part of the Ouachita Mountains. So we're going to have that event right there and try to explain to people that Bigfoot is real. Some of the things that's happened here in Arkansas, where Arkansas was about one of the top 4 earliest states to ever have any kind of recorded Bigfoot encounter right there. And then again, we have the Keith Crabtree camp out there. I think it's going to be about the 13th of April, something like that. And it's down at a place called Smith Park. Free camping, except for you have to pay just for the electric utilities, but the camping itself doesn't cost you anything. Be some great researchers there, a lot of good time. Last year had a tornado on that day, and that night nearly everybody had some kind of Bigfoot encounter, which I would not have expected to happen, but it did. I think it just kind of set those animals off. And so we have that going, and then we'll be downtown there at Falk, right there, right next door to the Monster Mart, and actually, signing some books, meeting and greeting people, and that's always a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that right there. And then of course, we got a few bass tournaments coming up too. Got to take a little time to do that right there. Kind of grease my palm a little bit so I can buy a few more Bigfoot cameras. But other than that, I'm looking very much forward to it. And again, Keith has a Halloween camp out down there at the same time, a place called Alex Smith Park. Kids come and they do their contest. They do the Bigfoot calling. Everybody has a good time. So I'll be doing all that. Hopefully I'll have some encounters in there in between to share with everybody. And I'm going to want to get through here tonight. I'm going down to one of the places that we can get the photographs there, and I'm gonna have some prints developed of what I've gotten here recently. I've also got one there that's just massive, and he's probably 9 foot or more. It's at nighttime. He's standing over the camera like that right there, and I sent that to Mr. Becker there, and boy, I mean, he fills the lens to say the least, and the eyes are just glowing. So I'm gonna have that done. So hopefully I have some more stuff to get to share with y'all next time. But I'm in the woods now, probably 3 or 4 days a week, whether it's driving if it's raining or actually there in the woods. So again, I hope that I have something to share with y'all. Again, please know that I'm telling you the truth. Hopefully you can tell by what my demeanor that I don't have any reason to lie to you. I want you to know it's real, and it's something that's the most amazing thing I think that I've ever been into as far as for how did they survive this long, and they still haven't got it. Again, like Daniel's showing my book, it's called Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. I was told you'll never find it. Well, that's why it's called The Unfindable. It found me, put it this way. I didn't find it, it found me. But I do have a lot of encounters here in Arkansas. And
that's right.
Get a chance to get on there. It's Amazon, Lulu Books, and then Kindle. The book is there, and I think it's from $30 to $37, something other like that. But it's 449 pages with color pictures of the Bigfoot in there. There's some of the Bigfoot in there. I'm starting another book.
That's right.
And so it will be hopefully even better than this. I learned a lot in publishing this one. Hopefully the next one will be even better. Then I'll have one more after that. So that's going to be about what we've got.
Fantastic.
Everything that I've got going on so far. Man, I appreciate y'all having me on. I appreciate anybody who listens and everybody who listens, man. It just means a whole lot because you've got anything you can do with your time. And rather than listen to me, and when you do, it means a whole lot. So, man, I appreciate it. That's why I'm trying to bring y'all this to share with you. Hey, open your mind view. I've heard it, man. I've talked to preachers. I've talked to policemen. I've talked to doctors. I've talked to nurses. I've talked to school teachers. I've talked to school kids. They never expected to have their first encounter just like this old 17-year-old boy did whenever he was down there, but he did. So that's about all I can share right now. But all right. I look forward to being back with y'all, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Searching for the Unfindable. So on behalf of myself and my co-host Matt Slater in Quincy, Washington, and of course, the great researcher William Lunsford in Texarkana, Arkansas. Thank you for joining us, and we'll get part 2 done, and we're looking forward to that. So have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank y'all, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.